Welcome to Lit and Unfiltered by My Element, the podcast where real talk meets cannabis culture. Whether you're lighting up for wellness, relaxation, or curiosity, this is the space for raw, unfiltered conversations that go beyond the buzz. In every episode, we'll spark discussions that keep it real, give you the facts and push boundaries. No fluff, no filler. Just real talk about the cannabis revolution happening right now. So roll with us, kick back, and let's dive into another lit conversation. Proudly brought to you by My Element Electric Lighters. Make your own flame. Now to your hosts, Jax and Mia.
Ready for a deep dive into something really interesting. We're going to explore the world of cannabis, see if it lives up to all the hype, for health and wellness and all that.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? Cannabis went from taboo to this hot topic in wellness and medicine.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, is it really a miracle cure, or are we setting ourselves up for disappointment?
Right. The million-dollar question for sure. And the history is wild. Thousands of years as medicine, then bam, prohibition, and now it's back. But let's back up. You mentioned ancient civilizations using it for healing. What's that about?
Okay, so picture this. 5,000 years ago, ancient Egyptians, Indians, they're using cannabis in their medical practices. We're talking pain relief, inflammation, even digestion.
5,000 years ago. Seriously, what kind of evidence do we even have from back then?
We've got ancient texts, right? They talk about its uses. Plus, archaeological finds, they show cultivation, consumption, and get this, we have remnants of their remedies like tinctures and salves. They analyzed them, guess what? Cannabis was a key ingredient.
Wow, so it wasn't just some random thing, but integrated into their healthcare. And Queen Victoria, right, using cannabis for menstrual pain in the 1800s, that just blows my mind.
Right. It totally changes how we see it today. Nobody back then thought it was scandalous. It was just a normal treatment option. Shows you how accepted it was in Western medicine back then.
So what happened? We went from Queen Victoria to decades of reefer madness.
Well, it's tied to social and political stuff. The 1900s, prohibition started. Lots of racial and economic fears driving it. Sadly, cannabis got caught up in that wave, and boom, Western medicine pretty much forgot about it, despite its history and potential.
We hit the pause button on all that knowledge. But then things started changing in the 90s, right? One of the papers you shared talked about the HIV/AIDS epidemic changing how we saw medical cannabis.
Definitely a turning point. People with HIV/AIDS were dealing with awful symptoms. Pain, nausea, wasting syndrome. Cannabis gave them relief, and that got people talking about its medical potential again.
It's like history repeating itself, right? People turning to cannabis when nothing else worked. And that led to California taking that big step toward legalization.
Exactly. 1996, California becomes the first U.S. state to legalize medical cannabis. And that started a chain reaction. Other states, other countries, all following their lead.
Wow. History repeating, but with hopefully more knowledge this time around. But to understand how it all works, we got to talk science. Everyone hears about THC and CBD, but what are they really? How do they work in our bodies?
Okay, so it's all about these things called cannabinoids. They're naturally in the cannabis plant. THC and CBD are the famous ones. They interact with our bodies in crazy ways.
Okay, so THC first. That's what gets you high, right?
Yep. THC is psychoactive, affects your mind. But it's not just about getting high. Research shows it can help with pain, stimulate appetite, even reduce nausea.
So it's not just about feeling good, but feeling better physically, too.
Exactly. Now, CBD is different. It's not psychoactive, no high from CBD.
Which explains why CBD is everywhere now. Oils, gummies, they even put it in coffee. What's the deal with CBD? Why is everyone so obsessed?
It's taken off in the wellness world, and not without reason. Studies show potential for anxiety relief, reducing inflammation, even helping with seizures, especially in kids with epilepsy.
That's amazing.
Right.
So how do they work their magic? What's happening in our bodies when we take THC or CBD?
Here's where it gets really interesting. Both THC and CBD, they interact with our endocannabinoid system. We call it the ECS.
ECS. Okay, now we're getting all scientific. What is that exactly?
Imagine this, a whole network of receptors all over your body. That's your ECS. It's like a master regulator, keeping things in balance. Mood, sleep, pain, appetite, everything.
So it's like our body's control panel, and cannabis can mess with it.
That's a great way to put it. When you take cannabis, the THC and CBD, they attach to those ECS receptors. And that changes how the ECS works, which is how we experience those effects we talked about.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. So we've got this control panel, right, the ECS. And THC and CBD can, flip the switches. But how does that actually help with, say, anxiety or depression? Can cannabis really play a role in mental health?
That's where things get tricky. People have been using cannabis for relief for ages. We have tons of stories. But research is still catching up, especially for mental health.
So we're in kind of uncharted territory. What about CBD? Everyone says it's like a magic bullet for anxiety.
It's important to be realistic. Some people say CBD makes them feel calmer, less anxious. But the research isn't totally clear yet, and THC is even more complicated when it comes to mental health.
So it's not as simple as, like, CBD is good, THC is bad.
Right. Everyone reacts differently to cannabis. For some people, THC, especially in high doses, can actually make anxiety worse, or even cause paranoia, especially if they're prone to it anyway.
Sounds like finding the right approach for mental health is really personal.
It is. We need way more research. People need to be talking to their doctors, and everyone needs to be careful with dosage and how they're taking it.
Absolutely. Okay, switching gears a bit. I read one paper you sent, really interesting, about cannabis, specifically CBD, and neuroprotection.
Yeah.
What is that? Protecting your brain somehow.
Exactly. Neuroprotection means protecting your nervous system from damage. And get this, some researchers think CBD might protect our brains from those diseases that make your brain degenerate.
You mean like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's? Those are like incurable right now. Devastating diseases.
Yeah, exactly. It's very early research, but the potential is huge. There are studies suggesting that CBD could reduce brain inflammation, which seems to be a big part of how those diseases get worse.
So instead of just treating symptoms, CBD could like slow it down, maybe even stop it. That'd be incredible.
It would. And it just shows how important it is to keep researching cannabis. We're just scratching the surface of what it can do.
It's like we found this treasure chest, but we're still figuring out the keys. So we've got pain management, mental health, this neuroprotection thing. Anything else surprising that cannabis might be good for?
Well, this one's right up your alley with all the wellness stuff. Cannabis is a powerful anti-inflammatory. That's why people have always used it for aches, pains, even skin problems.
Makes sense if you use it for sore muscles or whatever, but we're seeing CBD in everything now, like beauty products. How does that work?
Well, think about it. A lot of skin issues are about inflammation.
Right.
Acne, redness, even wrinkles. Putting CBD right on your skin, it might be able to calm that down, reduce those flare-ups, make your skin healthier.
It's wild how we're rediscovering all this ancient knowledge about cannabis with modern science. Like we're just figuring it out all over again.
Totally. And it's not just about medical conditions anymore. Tons of people are using cannabis, mostly CBD, in their everyday lives, even if they're not sick.
It's true. CBD oil, bath bombs, CBD coffee, it's everywhere. But are people just following a trend, or is there something more to it?
I think it's deeper than that. People want natural ways to deal with stress, to feel better, improve their lives. They're using CBD to help them sleep, relax, even as part of their workouts.
Wait, workouts and cannabis? Those seem like total opposites.
It does, right. But it makes sense when you think about the science. Athletes, especially in intense sports, are using cannabis, mostly CBD again, for recovery after they work out. Remember the anti-inflammatory properties. CBD could help with sore muscles, achy joints.
So it's like a natural painkiller.
Sort of, yeah. And some athletes even say that using cannabis, like not a lot, can help them work out better, like get in the zone, be less anxious before a competition.
Wow, that's fascinating. So cannabis yoga and stuff like that, that's a real thing.
Oh, yeah. People say cannabis helps them be more aware of their body, get deeper stretches, and just relax more during yoga or whatever they're doing.
This is all so interesting, but we gotta be real, right? Like with anything powerful, there are good and bad sides. We've talked about the good stuff, but what about the downsides of cannabis? Yeah, it feels like we're discovering all this potential, but also realizing we've got a lot to learn still.
Right, exactly. We talked about the good stuff, but yeah, we need to talk about the concerns too, especially with more and more people using it.
Let's get into it. What about the downsides, the negative stuff? We can't ignore that. It wasn't demonized for no reason, right?
Well, one big one, especially if you use a lot of THC or use it for a long time, is what it might do to your brain, like your thinking. Studies show it can mess with your memory, your focus, even lead to problems thinking clearly down the road, especially for young people. Their brains are still forming.
Makes sense. Those years are so important for your brain. What about addiction? That's a big deal with any substance.
Yeah, cannabis can be addictive. It's real. Probably not as bad as alcohol or opioids. Research suggests that. But still, people can get dependent, have withdrawals when they try to stop.
So, like anything, it's about being responsible. But with so many different products and strengths, how do you even know how much is safe? It's not like there's a label on a gummy that tells you, right?
And that's a huge problem right now. We don't have, official guidelines for cannabis doses. Plus, You've got all these different ways to take it, smoking, vaping, edibles, and they all hit you differently, last different times.
So you're basically on your own, experimenting. That could be risky, especially if you're new to it.
It's why it's so important to talk to a doctor, especially if you're using cannabis for medical reasons. They can help you figure out the right dose, make sure it doesn't mess with the other meds, and just be safer about it.
Sounds like the regulations are playing catch-up with this whole industry blowing up.
Yeah, it's a new frontier, right? The cannabis industry is still figuring things out. So that means you have problems with products not being what they say they are, different batches being different strengths, even stuff in there that shouldn't be. We need stricter rules to protect people.
It's a jungle out there, huh? Amazing potential, but gotta watch your step. So someone's listening to this, they're interested, but it's a lot to take in. What's the most important thing to remember?
I just be smart, be careful, and talk to people. Do your research, know what you're putting in your body, and don't overdo it. Talk to your doctor, get advice for your specific situation. And remember, more isn't always better. Start slow, see how you feel.
Great advice. As we wrap up this deep dive on cannabis, what surprised you the most learning about all this?
You know, it's just crazy how much we still don't know. We missed out on so much because of Prohibition, and now we're playing catch-up, realizing how complex it is, proving those old ideas wrong.
It feels like a total shift in how we see cannabis, right? It's not just about getting high anymore, but about using it to feel better, live better, but we've got to be smart about it.
Absolutely. Keep asking questions, keep learning, but be open-minded too. The more we learn, the better we'll be at using its full potential.
Love that. Thanks so much for taking this deep dive with me into the world of cannabis and health and wellness. We covered a lot, but something tells me we're not done talking about this.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Lit and Unfiltered by My Element. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and picked up some fresh insights on cannabis culture. Also, don't forget to check out myelement.store for our full range of electric lighters and accessories, designed with style, sustainability, and free lifetime replacement in mind. Still here? Cool. Here's an exclusive heads up just for our listeners. We've got a flash sale coming soon with over 50% off select lighters as well as some wild giveaways. You won't want to miss it. Head over to myelement.store. Join the crew and keep an eye on your inbox for the details. Until next time, keep it lit. My Element. Make your own flame.